They can't sit here. We're fully booked, the hostess snapped, barely glancing up from her reservation book. But we called ahead, Diane Carter said, clutching her purse tighter. Her husband Marvin stood beside her, holding their 7-year-old daughter Ava's hand. The hostess didn't flinch. Doesn't matter. No walk-ins, no exceptions. They weren't walk-ins. They weren't late. And yet, somehow, their names mysteriously weren't on the list. Diane could feel the familiar sting rise in her chest, the silent rejection that didn't need to be spelled out. She looked around the elegant lobby of Palmyra's, the trendiest restaurant in Beverly Hills, where influencers posed for pictures by the gold-draped windows and diamond-studded patrons sipped champagne. Not one face looked like hers. Marvin leaned in. Listen, I confirmed with someone named Lila, 7:30. The Carter family. Anniversary dinner. Is there any chance? The hostess cut him off. I said, there's no table. Maybe try somewhere else. Like, down the street. Diane caught the smirk. The down the street wasn't just directions. It was dismissal. She swallowed hard and stepped in front of her daughter, shielding her from the embarrassment already setting in. I don't understand, she said softly. We did everything right. Behind the podium, the hostess finally looked up. Her name tag said Chelsea in elegant cursive. Her eyes were blue, cold, and calculating. She leaned in, whispering just low enough. Look, lady, I don't make the rules, but I do control the seating. Take it up with someone who cares. Ava tugged at Diane's skirt. Mommy, are we not eating here anymore? Diane bent down. We're just figuring it out, sweetie. A crowd was forming now, people turning their heads, some curious, others pretending not to notice. Marvin pulled out his phone, opened the reservation email, and held it up. Here, see? Reservation confirmed. 7:30 p.m. table for 3. Diane Carter. Chelsea didn't even look. Must be a glitch. And there's nothing you can do, Marvin pressed. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. My wife picked this place months ago. Sorry, Chelsea said, her smile fake and bright. Try next week. Just then, the double doors opened, and a blast of camera flashes filled the lobby. Heads turned, whispers erupted. Is that? Oh my God. Wait, is that her? The crowd parted like the Red Sea. She walked in wearing a wide-brimmed hat, oversized sunglasses, and a floor-length trench coat cinched at the waist. But there was no hiding her. It was Nia Torres, global music icon, Grammy-winning artist, advocate, and Diane's childhood friend. Nia had grown up in the same Atlanta neighborhood as Diane. They went to the same school, sang in the same choir. But where Diane became a public school teacher, Nia's voice took her to the world stage. And now she was here, right here, walking toward them. Nia, Diane whispered in disbelief. Nia pulled down her glasses, flashed a warm smile, and beelined toward her. Girl, you thought I forgot, she said, wrapping Diane in a hug. Happy anniversary. Chelsea's face went pale. Nia turned to Marvin and gave him a one-arm hug, then crouched down to Ava. Look how big you are. You remember Auntie Nia? Ava nodded shyly. Nia straightened and turned to the hostess, her voice switching from warm to ice. Excuse me. Why is my family standing in the lobby? Chelsea's lips parted. I didn't know they were with you. They're not with me, Nia corrected, removing her coat and handing it to the stunned coat check girl. Underneath, she wore a sleek black jumpsuit, gold accessories glittering under the chandelier. I'm with them. Whispers turned to stunned silence. Chelsea stammered. Let me check. I can make something work. No need. A tall man in a charcoal suit emerged from the side door. His name was Angelo Moretti, the owner of Palmyra's. He moved like he owned the air in the room. Miss Torres, he said smoothly. So lovely to see you again. She turned. Wish I could say the same. Angelo, your staff just refused to seat my family. Any comment on that? Angelo glanced at Chelsea. There must have been some mix-up. Nia folded her arms. Oh, there was no mix-up. There was just a black family who didn't fit your image of a Palmyra guest. People were recording now. Phones were up. Diane wanted to disappear. But Nia was just getting started. You see, this little girl, Nia said, pointing to Ava, she's got more class in her pinky than half the people eating foie gras in your dining room. And her parents. They're educators, role models. And tonight they were supposed to be honored, Diane whispered. Nia, it's okay. We can just go. No, Nia said firmly. Eyes never leaving Angelo. You know how many places they could have gone, but they chose here because they believed in the illusion you sell. And you humiliated them. Chelsea looked like she wanted to sink into the marble floor. Angelo cleared his throat. We can prepare our private room. Complimentary, of course. Nia shook her head. Too late. She looked at Diane. You still want that anniversary dinner? Diane nodded slowly. Great, Mia said, but not here. She turned on her heel. Come on, y'all. I got reservations at Melrose Heights. They know how to treat people. The crowd parted again as Nia led them out. Diane's heart pounded. Ava looked around in awe. Marvin mouthed, Thank you. As they reached the sidewalk, a reporter rushed up. Miss Torres, do you have a comment on what just happened inside Palmera's? Nia smiled for the camera. Yeah, racism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a missing reservation. And with that, they disappeared into a waiting black SUV. But the story didn't end there. The video went viral. Black family denied service until Nia Torres walks in. Chelsea was fired. Palmera's Yelp page was flooded with reviews. Angelo released a weak statement, but the damage was done. And Diane, she wasn't invisible anymore. She was invited to speak at conferences, interviewed on talk shows, and even wrote an op-ed that went viral the night we weren't good enough for dinner. It wasn't fame she wanted, it was change. And that night, change had a name, Nia Torres. Diane didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed next to Marvin, her phone buzzing every few minutes with messages, some from old friends, others from strangers, screenshots, retweets, news articles, and video clips poured in. The moment had spread like wildfire. Diane, Marvin said quietly, turning toward her. You okay? I don't know, she admitted. It all feels surreal. Yesterday, I was just trying to make a dinner special for our family. Today, I'm a symbol. You're more than that. You're a voice, he said, squeezing her hand. And you've always been powerful, baby. Now the world's just catching up. Her heart swelled, but so did the anxiety. She wasn't used to this attention. Being a teacher meant pouring into others, not having cameras pointed at you. The next morning, a producer from Good Morning America called. We'd love to feature your story. The country needs to hear it. Diane hesitated. I didn't ask for this spotlight. That's exactly why you're perfect for it, the producer replied. You're real. By noon, local and national outlets had picked up the story. Every headline was more dramatic than the last. Teacher denied a seat. Music icon makes it right. Beverly Hills restaurant in hot water. After snubbing black family, Nia Torres shuts down racism with style and grace. But it wasn't the media frenzy that hit Diane the hardest. It was the letters. A handwritten envelope arrived from a woman in Mississippi, Mrs. Carter. I saw what happened to you. I'm 62, and I've lived through a lot. But your grace, the way you held your daughter, the way you didn't scream or fight back, you reminded me of my mother. Thank you for standing tall. There were dozens more, from young girls, mothers, even white families who'd never seen discrimination so clearly captured in a single moment. And then came the invitation that truly caught her off guard, a gala hosted by the National Coalition for Cultural Equity. She almost didn't go, but Nia called her personally. You're coming, no excuses. Diane laughed. I don't have a dress fancy enough for this. I've already sent one, Nia replied. Check your front door. Sure enough, a courier stood on the porch, holding a white garment bag with Diane's name embroidered in gold thread. Inside was an elegant deep blue gown, flowing and graceful. "Okay," Diane whispered. "I guess I'm going." The gala was held at the Waldorf Astoria under crystal chandeliers and velvet-lined staircases. As Diane entered, flashes went off. Reporters swarmed, asking questions. "How did it feel when you were denied service? What would you say to Chelsea if she were here tonight? Do you believe racism is still this widespread?" She gave quiet, composed answers. But inside, a storm brewed, not anger, purpose. Then came the speech. She hadn't planned to speak, but the host called her up, introducing her as an unexpected hero in an everyday battle for dignity. Diane stood at the podium, heart pounding, and looked out at the sea of faces. "Thank you," she began, her voice trembling. "I never imagined being here. I'm not an activist. I'm not famous. I'm a teacher, a mother, a wife. But last week, my daughter saw something no child should see: her family being dismissed simply because of the color of our skin." A hush fell over the crowd. She saw her father being told he didn't belong. She saw me trying to explain the unexplainable, but she also saw someone step in someone who didn't have to. Nia reminded us that silence is a choice, and so is courage. She paused. "It's not about a reservation. It's about recognition. Every person deserves to be seen, to be treated with dignity. I didn't ask for this moment, but I promise I won't waste it." Thunderous applause followed. Backstage, Nia hugged her. "You were born for this." Diane smiled, eyes shining. "I was born to raise my daughter in a better world." The days that followed were a blur of media appearances, interview requests, and school visits. Diane hadn't returned to her job yet. The school district placed her on paid leave, not as a punishment, but because they were overwhelmed with reporters trying to sneak onto school grounds. Marvin held things down at home. He kept Ava's routine as normal as possible: piano, lessons, bedtime stories, their usual Sunday pancakes. But Diane could feel the shift. Ava had questions now. "Mommy," she asked one night, curled in bed beside her, "why didn't that lady want us to eat there?" Diane smoothed her daughter's braids. "Because some people haven't learned to see others with love. But that's not your fault, okay? Is it 'cause we're black?" Diane's chest tightened. She nodded slowly. "Some people judge without knowing, but being black isn't something bad. It's something powerful. You come from strong people, Ava. Remember that." Ava thought for a moment, then whispered, "Auntie Nia stood up for us." "She did." Diane smiled. "Because she knows we're worth it." At that moment, Diane decided something. This couldn't just be a viral moment. It had to become something more. She reached out to a nonprofit organization called Voices at the Table, which promoted equity and hospitality. She offered to volunteer, but they had other ideas. "We want you on our board," the founder, Tameka Owens, said. "You don't just have a story, you have presence." Diane blinked. "I'm just a teacher." "You're exactly what we need." Within weeks, Diane was organizing speaking events, writing curriculum modules about discrimination in customer service, and even co-authoring a training guide for restaurant managers. Her name appeared in Essence, Forbes, and even Bon Appetit in a piece titled "How One Family's Pain Changed the Restaurant Industry." Meanwhile, Palmera's tried damage control. They replaced the hostess, rebranded their website with diversity language, and invited Diane to return as an honored guest. She declined. Instead, she forwarded the invitation to Nia, who reposted it with a simple caption, "Too late." But Diane wasn't bitter. She was focused. And then, one Thursday evening, she received an unexpected call. "Miss S. Carter," the man said. "My name is Elijah Grant. I'm the Chief Inclusion Officer for Crestmont Hospitality Group. We own over 80 restaurants nationwide. I'd like to offer you a consulting position." "Consulting?" Diane repeated. "Yes. We followed your work. Your message is resonating. And, frankly, we need help." She met with him the following week. Crestmont flew her first class to New York City, put her in a suite, and gave her a platform to speak to every regional manager in the company. It wasn't about shaming anyone. Diane never raised her voice, never called anyone names. She used her experience as a teacher to educate with clarity, patience, and power. At the end of her talk, one of the managers, a middle-aged white man, approached her with tears in his eyes. "My daughter's married to a black man," he said. "They had a baby girl last year. I never thought about what kind of world she's walking into until I saw that video of your daughter holding your hand." Diane shook his hand gently. "It's not too late to change it." Word spread. Diane's consulting expanded. She never stopped being a DAT teacher, she just changed classrooms. Ava grew more confident too. In school, she wrote a short story called "The Day the Music Came to Dinner," inspired by their night at Palmera's. It won a statewide writing award. And Marvin, he remained Diane's rock. Quiet, steady, loyal. He never tried to steal her spotlight. He just held it up for her. Then came the night. Ava was asked to introduce her mother at a Women of Courage banquet. Standing on stage in a pink dress and shiny shoes, Ava cleared her throat. "My mom didn't get famous because she sang or acted or did something flashy. She got famous because she stood still and didn't let someone tell her she wasn't good enough." The audience stood before Ava even finished. Diane walked to the stage in tears. She hugged her daughter tightly and whispered, "That's the best intro I've ever had." But Ava wasn't done. She leaned into the mic and said, "And P.S. if you see my Auntie Nia, tell her she's the coolest person alive." Laughter filled the room. The final act came months later, when Diane was invited back to her hometown of Atlanta for a citywide panel on cultural justice. As she stepped onto the community center stage, she saw familiar faces, her old neighbors, her former students, and yes, Nia, sitting front row in sunglasses and a denim jacket, smiling proudly. Diane spoke from the heart. "You don't have to be famous to make a difference. You don't need a platform, you just need a voice." And when they tried to silence that voice, "You remember this, you deserve to be at the table. And if they won't give you one, you build your own." Applause erupted. In that moment, Diane wasn't just the woman who had been denied a dinner table. She had become a voice that helped thousands find their own. A year had passed. The night at Palmera's had become a cultural touchpoint. It was cited in anti-bias workshops, used as a case study in sociology classes, and even referenced in political debates about racial equity in public service. Diane Carter had never wanted the spotlight, but now she carried it with quiet grace, still a mother, still a wife, still grounded. Her calendar was full, a keynote here, a board meeting there, and yet she still made time to walk Ava to school every morning, still insisted on home-cooked dinners at least 4 nights a week. One evening, she and Marvin sat on the back porch, watching the sunset. Ava was inside, finishing her book report on Maya Angelou. "You ever think we'll just go back to normal?" Marvin asked, passing her a mug of tea. Diane thought for a long moment. "I don't think I want to go back," he nodded. "Me neither." Then came a letter, certified, gold-embossed envelope, hand-delivered from the White House. She stared at it for a full minute before opening it. "Dear Mrs. Carter," it read, "in honor of your courage, clarity, and commitment to justice, we would like to formally invite you to receive the Presidential Citizens Medal at the upcoming National Recognition Ceremony." Diane gasped. Marvin looked up from the grill. "What is it?" She held it out to him with trembling fingers. I think I just got invited to the White House." The ceremony was televised, held in the East Room, beneath historic portraits and guarded by Secret Service. It honored individuals who had impacted American society through acts of moral courage. Diane stood beside doctors, civil rights leaders, and decorated veterans. When her name was called, she stepped forward, heart pounding. The president shook her hand and draped the medal around her neck. "Miss S. Carter," he said at the podium, "your story reminded America that racism isn't always a punch or a slur. Sometimes it's a reservation that disappears." but what you did, how you carried yourself, how you turned pain into purpose was nothing short of extraordinary. The room gave a standing ovation. She spotted Nia in the crowd, clapping with tears in her eyes. Ava was next to her, waving excitedly. Marvin stood tall, filming it all. And for one beautiful moment, Diane felt a peace deeper than applause. She had walked through fire and come out gold. Later that week, Diane got a call from a young woman named Selena in Ohio. She was a single mom, a waitress, and had just been denied a management promotion because of cultural fit. I didn't know who to talk to, Selena said, voice cracking, but then I saw your speech, and I needed to tell someone. Diane listened for over an hour. Then she connected Selena with legal resources, wrote her a recommendation, and followed up weeks later to hear the good news. Selena had been promoted after all. The ripple continued. A group of high school students in Chicago started a podcast called Reserve for All, inspired by AVA's essay. A restaurant in Houston posted a new sign by their front door. Everyone has a seat at this table, inspired by the Carter family. Diane visited them on her next trip. She cried when she saw Ava's face on the mural outside, painted beside the words, "Dignity is not optional." One day, Palmera's closed its doors permanently. Angelo Moretti sold the building quietly. Rumors swirled, but the truth was clear: when trust is broken, even chandeliers can't make people come back. Years later, a new restaurant opened in its place. This one was co-owned by a black chef and a Latino entrepreneur. They called it Harmony. At the ribbon cutting, they invited Diane to say a few words. She kept it short. Food should never come with fear. May this place be a reminder: where there is welcome, there is strength. She was the first to be served that night. 10 years passed. Ava, now 17, stood in her graduation cap, valedictorian. In her speech, she said, people think it all started with Nia Torres walking into a restaurant, but it didn't. It started with my mom deciding to stand still when walking away would have been easier. She didn't just raise me, she raised a movement. The crowd stood. Again. Diane wiped her tears. She wasn't a teacher anymore, not in the traditional sense, but her classroom had become the world, and every lesson started the same. You belong. You are worthy. And when they try to forget that, remind them who you are.